Hey everyone, we're back. It's episode 3 of The Bracket, our podcast in which we rank everything according to NCAA tournament-style bracket pools. You may recall in our 2 previous episodes, we were starting to break down the biggest dipshits in heavy metal. Coming out of our Dave Mustaine bracket, we had Matt Heafy, the frontman for Trivium. And coming out of the Mike Portnoy bracket, we had a surge, a 6-seed surge from Jonathan Davis, vocalist of Korn, and of course, Jay Devil. I am your host, Dan Kaplan. We are going to be here for the KERRY King bracket tonight. With me, as always, are my 2 esteemed colleagues, Corey Butterworth.
Yes, that is me.
That is him, the man from up north, frostbitten New Hampshire. And of course, down in Baltimore, land of nothing and the wire, Kevin Davis. Kevin, you don't have to say anything. It's cool. Anyway. We know they don't teach you how to talk much down in land of nothing and the wire. Kevin, how's your laptop battery doing tonight? You more than 32%?
64.
How about your pants percentage? Are you above 0?
Nope.
64% battery. There you have it, folks. 64% battery and 0% pants on Kevin Davis. So yeah, it's tournament time, and this podcast suddenly feels all the more appropriate. Kevin, what do you think about sports?
I have better things to do.
Of course you do.
Watch The Wire.
I have being pantsless in bed.
There you go. Folks, you may recall Kevin was not with us last week for the Portnoy bracket. Corey and I actually had quite a bit of fun with that. But unfortunately, Kevin had car issues. Would you, as I mentioned before leading in, we had Corey and I determined that Jonathan Davis, frontman of Korn, and Jay Devil was the winner of that bracket. Did you want to weigh in before we get to tonight's events? Did you?
I mean, in hindsight, when I first heard that, I was a little surprised, but I totally get why someone named Jay Devil would be a bigger dipshit than Mike Portnoy.
Someone named Jay Devil, someone who named his mic stand the bitch, someone who claimed he invented dubstep. Yeah. Jonathan Davis, there's no getting around it. He is a dipshit unlike many we've seen. Anyway, tonight we're going to break into the King bracket named for KERRY King. I want to say lead in quotation marks, lead guitarist for Slayer.
We'll talk about how I feel about his leads later, but that's why lead is in quotations.
That we will. KERRY King's leads are, I want to say the exact opposite of a thing of beauty. Basically, they're a thing of beauty if you're looking for jack shit. So yeah, that'll be fun. Why don't we get right into it? We have our first matchup. We have KERRY King and facing off against Glenn Danzig, frontman of his own band, but also of the Misfits, of Samhain, and you name it. Guys, what do we think here?
I definitely am going to give that the King, just because if you really think about it, Danzig isn't that much of a dipshit or any form of douchebaggery. He's just a guy who has a little bit of an ego, who sounds a little like Elvis and sings about raping your mother.
Yeah,
really.
That was one of my favorite things about the Misfits is that a guy can sing like Elvis and his lyrical content is about raping mothers.
Whereas just KERRY King just.
Where do we begin with KERRY King? Yeah, I will agree. I mean, Glenn Danzig is really he's on here as a filler. We had trouble coming up with 32 single dipshits, I should say.
Right.
Well, he's only really much of a dipshit because of that whole fight thing that happened on YouTube.
Yeah,
where he got knocked out.
Yeah,
that's it.
So yeah, I mean, he's a filler spot. KERRY King, meanwhile, I mean, we've got loads of material. Where do we begin? One of his best friends, Jeff Hanneman. I mean, this is just the most recent offense. One of his best friends, Jeff Hanneman, co-founder of Slayer, passed away last year, and it has pretty widely it's been pretty widely accepted that it's KERRY King who is insisting on the band carrying on. Never mind the fact that Jeff Hanneman wrote most of the riffs, possessed most of the talent in the band. King just wants to keep sucking on that money teat.
He won't let the band die, and unfortunately, they don't put out anything of value as far as I'm concerned anymore. Their best years are obviously long gone. I've listened to World Painted Blood. Just I happened to see them live right before that album came out, and it is awful. It's awful. The riffage is really mediocre at best. I mean, it's not Slayer. It doesn't sound like Slayer. Um, I don't know. I mean, I guess we can talk primarily this round at least about his inability to let that band die, even though it just needs to happen at this point. And frankly, nobody cares about like death thrash anymore. Unfortunately, it's just I don't know. They never advance. They never change their sound. They're boring, really.
Yeah. And full credit to them. They had a stretch in the 80s where you really couldn't touch them. It was kind of like Megadeth in the late 80s, early 90s.
Absolutely.
But Slayer, I mean, you had Hell Awaits, you had Rain and Blood, South of Heaven, Seasons in the Abyss. I mean, those albums still hang today. I mean, they still sound great. But
I mean, to be quite honest, I usually fall asleep whenever Slayer's on. So that's that says anything about them.
Mr. Contrarian over here, Kevin Davis, is not amused.
I fall asleep to Slayer. It happens.
Yet you posted a song off of Devin Townsend's Ghost the other day. So
that's relaxing. It doesn't put me to sleep.
Yeah, if Slayer puts you to
boring.
sleep, Ghost must put you in a coma.
No, because Slayer's just boring. That's just what it comes down to. Ghost is relaxing and enjoyable and interesting.
Yeah, I would tend to agree.
Yeah.
Kerry, one more thing I want to say. I don't, again, we don't want to cover all of his dipshit material here in this first round, but
right.
Kerry, I found is kind of the king of unprovoked insults and like starting beef between bands.
Absolutely.
He started beef with Metallica over Saint Anger 7 years after the fact. It's like, yeah, dude, we know Saint Anger sucked. They already put out Death Magnetic. Like you're recycling an old joke here. He's started beef with Dave Mustaine. Not that that's particularly hard. He's just an asshole.
Yeah. He's
it doesn't look like we're gonna have much of a debate on this one. In the 1-8 matchup, Kerry King moves on, and we'll get our graphics up here in the second. Yep, there we go. I'm gonna advance Kerry King into the second round. Jumping to our next matchup, a 4-5, we have kind of an entertaining one here. We have Danny Filth, lead vocalist of Cradle of Filth, and Wayne Static from Static X. This is intriguing. They're both, I feel like both of these guys are sort of dipshits for the same reason, or for similar reasons. At least at first glance, there's a very superficial element to their dipshittedness. Am I right?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the top reasons I consider Wayne Static a dipshit is simply the image associated with him, which we'll go into detail on later. But yeah, they are similar dipshits. I think that's actually a fairly balanced matchup because of the fact.
Yeah, they're both sort of remnants of that late '90s, early 2000s crap. Like crap metal. Obviously
in different genres, but in a way, yeah, I think just Static X is more that reminiscent of that Stained, Limp Bizkit, new metal. They were like, if you could achieve success in being qualified as technically good metal or good new metal, they were below that, being like, we can try. So their goal, their brass ring was to be as good as Limp Bizkit.
Yeah. Well,
and they didn't.
And that's what I meant like that. They both are sort of, obviously Cradle of Filth has more of a symphonic, elements of like a very polished, almost like symphonic black metal sound, but they're the dregs of
though.
Oh no, I mean that's what I'm saying. They're the dregs of that barrel, whereas Static X is the dregs of the new metal barrel. And ultimately, if you're going to pick one set of dregs, I'd rather be the dregs of, quasi black metal, symphonic metal.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Is anybody else just really just uncomfortable? And I don't mean that it's haunting or creepy in a cool black metal way, but just uncomfortable with Danny Phil's screams at the end of songs, like that really airy awfulness that they are.
Yeah, it just kind of sounds
I will admit, when I was first getting into like non-80s metal, like I guess contemporary metal. The extreme side, like Cradle of Filth, I'm sort of ashamed to have ever considered them quote unquote extreme, but
Yeah.
Oh, don't have shame.
well,
Don't have shame. It's fine. We were all 14 before. It's fine.
the bracket is a no shame zone. But at any rate, they were one of the first bands I listened to that were sort of a heavier palette, a more modern palette, and Danny Phil's screams used to freak me the hell out. Like, it sounded kind of like a dying cat in a way.
Yeah.
Sort of like OTEP, but less irritating.
See, you have some reverence towards that from your youth. No one has reverence to Static X. No one's like, I remember the good old days when we were drinking Faygo and listening to Static X.
Jesus.
No one remembers that when we were talking about that chocolate starfish.
Oh, that chocolate
I'll tell you
starfish. What a fun time.
So, I mean, if you have those reflections,
You're probably
No.
looking at a few deeper problems than than just your music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's tipping the scales in Wayne's favor. There was also the fact that his former guitar player was arrested on child pornography, and in fact, I think actually even child molestation charges. And this is a guy that Wayne Static.
But isn't everybody these days?
Well, yes, but this is a guy that Wayne Static kind of personally invited into
Handpicked.
his band. So
Yeah.
that doesn't sit well.
No, I mean, A+ on the judge of character, all sarcasm intended, and it's just it doesn't help his cause at all. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I'd rather, even though Danny Filth has his band Margera associations, I'd rather be like, oh yeah, I was 14 and listened to Cradle Filth versus I lived in bumfuck wherever the shit and listened to Static X while I stomped on a cat, which is what I assume Static X fans do. So,
Yeah.
Hey guys, want to go to a Static X show? I brought an extra cat.
Another little weird thing that Corey and I were talking about Static X. They have this weird fixation on the town of Otsego, New York.
Yeah.
Their first 4 albums each had a song featuring the word Otsego. Like there was one called Otsego-lation, Otsego-lectric, Otsego Undead. As far as I know, there's no one.
well, that might be OCD. And that's...
Well, that's just it. Like, as far as I know, like, there's no one in the band that's actually from Otsego, New York. Wayne himself is from Wisconsin, so
Right.
I don't get it. But
I mean, it could be OCD. He heard the name has to include in every song now. Otherwise, his life is over.
yeah, well,
That's,
And I don't know if a psychological disorder adds to dipshittery, but
I think it might actually take away a little bit, just for the sympathy side of things. But
still not enough to.
Right.
Who knows?
Not enough to.
At any rate, I mean, I don't think there's much of a question here. I think we're all in agreement on Wayne, are we not?
yeah, it's
Yep.
it's Wayne.
Send him on through.
Alrighty,
The name Wayne doesn't help him either.
No.
definitely not.
Except for, Wayne's World.
That's true.
But
That's
Yeah, I guess
that's
so.
the only time.
There's also
Yeah.
Wayne Rooney, who we're better off not getting into. Corey knows what that
Wayne
means.
Brady's
Kevin
not
has
bad.
no clue.
It means
Nope. Better things
Sports
to do
reference
with my life.
for those of you out there. Wayne Rooney is a professional footballer, professional soccer player for you Yanks.
oh, you little. Go ahead.
Yeah, he plays for Manchester United, who having less than their best season right now. Anyway,
Also, case of 24 going on 50.
yeah, he's had hair plugs. It's not good. So yeah, at any rate, Wayne Static advances from the 4-5 matchup, sets up a regional semifinal matchup with Kerry King, the 1 versus the 5 seed. Anyway, jumping into our next matchup, we have the 3-6 in the King bracket. Sharon Osbourne, wife and manager of legendary Black Sabbath and solo artist Ozzy Osbourne, against the 6 seed Darren Malakian, guitarist of System of a Down. This one, I know we took a look at it. This one actually ended up being kind of close. What do we think here, guys?
One thing I did bring up, because as much of a shitbag as Sharon is, and there's loads of reasons for it, without her, the first 2 good Ozzy solo albums, like Blizzard and Diary of a Madman, would have never happened.
Exactly.
Like, Randy Rhoads would have never gotten anywhere without her being around.
Yeah, I was to follow up. I was gonna say the weird thing with her is she has bred a lot of the success that Ozzy's had, but she's also been a detriment in a lot of ways as well at the same time. So it's kind of like it's hard to say.
She's been more of a detriment to his integrity.
Yeah, it's almost like interesting to see and hypothesize as where Ozzy would be without her as far as success versus.
He'd be dead.
Yeah, to be fair,
well, we know that. Yes.
To be perfectly fair to Sharon, leaving Black Sabbath could have been, in another universe, leaving Black Sabbath could have been the worst thing to ever happen to Ozzy Osbourne. He could have gone straight down.
Right.
Sabbath could maybe have stuck with Ronnie Dio and taken it to new heights. Who knows? So credit to Sharon for putting, getting Ozzy on his feet, putting together the Blizzard of Oz lineups, the Diary of a Madman lineup. But at the same time, she then fired. I mean, Randy Rhoads died, so I'm not going to blame her for that yet.
I mean, we can. There's nothing stopping us.
You never know. You never know.
Died in a plane crash or Sharon Osbourne.
Pick your poison.
Sharon Osbourne was the plane.
But then for the Bark at the Moon album, she fired the other members of the band. She fired Bob Daisley, she fired Lee Kerslake, and then had the audacity to, when those albums were remastered, dub over their parts with re-recorded versions from Rob Trujillo and Mike Borden.
Yeah.
It's just awful. It's awful personnel management.
I mean, and we could say, if you look at the Darren aspect, he kind of did something similar with System of a Down, which they were good in the early 2000s, and then when it came to Mesmerize, Hypnotize, he was like, I have to make it my way, and they're just like, okay, and it became crap. And then he went on to proceed to make more crap. But however, his crap, it's only been 7 years running versus Sharon's, which has been 3 decades.
Right.
Yeah. I can only agree with you to an extent on that, because while I don't think Mesmerize and Hypnotize were as good from a quality standpoint, the fact is, commercially, the band was at their peak at that point. Those albums sold a ton. System of a Down was never bigger than when those albums came out. And granted, yes, I understand that a lot of that was momentum built up from, the first album from Toxicity,
etc.
But, and full agreement that, the stuff Darren has done since those 2 albums, Scars on Broadway, utter shit.
Awful.
I mean, we can also make the same argument for Sharon Osbourne. Ozzy was never bigger until, after those 2 first good albums. And you had Bark at the Moon, where he started getting a lot of commercial success. No More Tears was huge success for him.
That's fair. That's fair. I don't know. At the end of the day, I just keep coming back to Sharon. I mean, she's on The Talk on CBS. She's on the Diet Coke of The View. We'll call it that.
I like Diet Coke more than normal Coke.
Well, then maybe you should be watching The Talk instead of The View, Kev. I don't know. This is why you're feeling such a void in your life.
Oh, no.
She's a judge on America's Got Talent. She most egregiously arranged for power to be cut, for eggs to be thrown at Iron Maiden during their set on Ozfest back in 2005.
I still can't figure that out.
Well, because Bruce was upstaging Ozzy, let's face it. Bruce and Iron Maiden put on a better show than Ozzy at this point.
I've been to Ozfest, and pretty much everyone I've been to, Ozzy's been upstaged by whoever was on stage beforehand. Once it was Lamb of God. They just completely won the show one year, and I hate saying this, but the act that preceded Ozzy was Disturbed. And Disturbed, as much as I don't care for them, and they are really, really, really shitty, people do like them. And once their set was over, people left before Ozzy took the stage.
Yeah. Well, Ozzy's also
shame on them.
Extremely geriatric. So there's not much he can do at this point.
And it's also, I think it's a question of egos. I mean, yeah, there are bands that are going to play a lot better than Ozzy and or Black Sabbath at this point, but not all of them are going to rub it in. I mean, Maiden they've notoriously, they've had huge egos, and they were taking, I don't want to say taking shots. I don't want to like take Sharon's side necessarily, but the Osbourne camp clearly felt intimidated by Iron Maiden on that tour and reacted as they saw fit
in a super mature way. I guess that is a primary difference. That is a primary difference. I mean, certain bands, I guess, wouldn't pose a threat to Sharon and her precious ego, whereas
a band like Lamb of God or Disturbed, they might play better than Ozzy, but they'll bow down to it. They kind of do
their thing, go back in their hole, and call it a day.
Yeah.
Iron Maiden's Iron Maiden. Let's face it. They're going to steal any show they play anyway. So that is the one different factor there.
And then I've always sort of thought of Sharon to sum up these feelings in this first round. I've always sort of thought of Sharon as this image. That is for those of you out there who can't see, that is a dollar sign. That is a dollar sign made of dicks. That's what I think of or a dick made of dollar signs. Damn it.
Nope. The first way is better. Dollar sign made of dicks.
That is a dick made of dollar signs. So yeah, I mean that's Sharon's very essence at this point. She's a sellout. She's a corporate suck. Ozzy has been all the more successful for it, so I guess credit to her. But in a ranking of dipshits, I think she's going to advance here. Or would we agree?
I would agree.
Alrighty. So the 3 seed moves on. Sharon Osbourne is into the regional semifinals. Who will she face? That would be the winner of this match. The 2-7 in this bracket, we have Jeff Tate as the 2 seed, the lead singer and songwriter of Queensryche. And the 7 is Zakk Wylde, guitar player for Ozzy Osbourne. We have a lot of Ozzy Osbourne connections here in the bracket.
Although if we honestly look at it, Zakk Wylde's more of a filler because he's just goofy and hilarious. Right. Mostly. He's dumb. Like, he's really dumb. But that's not dipshitty. That's just lack of education.
I agree.
Resource. And being from New Jersey.
He's a doofus. I mean, he's a very talented guitar player. Metal, has had a huge influence on the hard rock and metal guitar playing communities. But yeah, he's a character, and his character is just sort of
lovable drunk.
Yeah, that's his drive. He's a lovable drunk.
Jeff Tate.
Let me start by saying this. Jeff Tate is really, really, really proud of the fact that he is the original voice of Queensryche, and I don't understand why at all.
In fact, when he split from Queensryche and formed his own version of Queensryche, he toured under with his new band as Queensryche, starring Jeff Tate, the original voice. Bit of an acrimonious split. It has actually gone on to make the Mike Portnoy Dream Theater split look kind of tame by comparison. But yeah, he's split from Queensryche in 2012. Queensryche hooked up with a guy named Todd LaTorre, who I believe was from a band called Crimson Glory. Jeff Tate, on the other hand, split off and formed his own version of Queensryche with a bunch of like random 80s holdovers, like Rudy Sarzo, who played in Quiet Riot, Simon Wright, who was in AC/DC. I mean, it's just a really random lineup. And yeah, as Corey said, he's very proud of the fact that he is the original voice of Queensryche. Are fans as proud? I don't know. I'm not really in the business of going to see Queensryche. I'm not of the Queensryche persuasion.
Well, here's the thing, and Dan, you're the one who showed me this. He has a 6-minute documentary about why it is awesome that he is Jeff Tate.
Yep.
I watched 45 seconds before I turned it off and never looked back.
The GT EPK, we're going to have an image up here shortly of just the where you can access this video. It's on YouTube, and it's basically as Kevin said, it's 6 minutes of Jeff Tate playing self-touch with a camera on him. Hey guys, I'm Jeff Tate. I sing in Queensryche. Here's all the reasons why you should like me.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
45 seconds in, and it was enough to call it good as far as this matchup goes for me. But
yeah,
it's hard to watch.
I think at my best I've made it through a minute.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
So I say he's going through. This is not even a contest worth debating over.
Yeah, we have more material on Jeff Tate, but we are going to save that for the later rounds. Jeff Tate.
We have 5 minutes more of a documentary.
What's funny to me is that documentary starts off with his accolades regarding Queensryche and what they've done, and the fact that there was more than 0 is still astounding to me. So I guess credit for that.
He loves his job.
I you know what, I cannot tell a lie. I mean, I do have the Operation Mindcrime album. I mean, I did like Queensryche at one point, but
Corey's eyes said it all. They were just like bulging out of his head when you said that.
Hey, I mean, Operation Mindcrime is a great album. I'm not going to take anything away from that, but yeah, he's Jeff Tate's done a little bit too much resting on his laurels. And what does that get him? Number 2 seed in the dipshit bracket and moving on to the next round. So yeah, that sets up an interesting matchup with Sharon Osbourne, a 3-2 matchup in the regional semis. Before we get to that, we're going to get to our 1-5 matchup, our other carryover, Kerry King versus Wayne Static. Guys, what do we think here?
Again, at the end of the day, I think it came down to Kerry King is more malicious and just won't let the death of his friend die. If you're going to use that phrasing. Wayne Static is just an idiot.
Well, what's weird is you say he won't let the death of his friend die, but he's he's making all these claims about the writing of their songs, and he's basically just overplaying his contributions over the years to Slayer, which pisses me off because Hammond was by far the superior talent. As Dan said, he wrote most of everything.
Yeah.
We haven't even really touched on his wanking, which is something that we should probably touch more on.
Which wanking? His
Are you
would
touch
that be
his
his
wanking?
ego wanking or his guitar playing?
It's all encompassing.
Yeah.
Either way, Corey's touching something about his wanking.
Yeah, Kerry
touching all
King's
of his wanking.
Kerry King's, I don't want to call it a guitar style, quote unquote, but he's sort of like whenever I hear him, it sort of reminds me of like if Zakk Wylde like only ever played pinch harmonics, like and at the same time if Yannick Gers from Iron Maiden only ever noodled around like an idiot. If those two just awful styles had a baby, that's Kerry King's guitar playing in a nutshell.
And unfortunately, those two styles make a very ugly baby.
Yeah. You can always tell.
A bald, tattooed, headed baby.
He's I don't know. He's sort of like I brought this up the other night. He's like that episode of Family Guy when they're talking about how Good Will Hunting was written. Like Jeff Hanneman is Matt Damon and Kerry King is Ben Affleck, the guy sitting on the couch the entire time, and he's like, "Hey, you want to give me credit for that song too?"
Right,
what?
exactly.
No.
Exactly.
No, I wrote it. That's the distribution of talent on guitar in Slayer. Hanneman.
You give Wayne, you can shit on Wayne Static all you want. He at least took credit for it's like, yeah, I made this shit. It's called Static X. My name.
He also though I think this is actually points against Wayne being a dipshit, just because I feel so sorry for him. There was an interview in which he was talking about his side project, Pig Hammer. Yes, Wayne Static has a side project called Pig Hammer, folks. And he was sort of talking about how he got bogged down. He wasn't sure when their album was coming out because, as he said, Static X is my main priority and always has been. How profoundly sad a statement is that Static X is someone's main priority in life and always has been. That's just depressing.
Yeah.
There are kids in the Congo who are like, I'm sorry.
I have a question, though. If his side project is called Pig Hammer, I'm thinking to myself conceptually, what is a pig hammer? Is it a hammer designed strictly for hammering on pigs, or is it a hammer shaped like a pig?
It's a hammer. It's a hammer made out of pig parts, I'm assuming.
All right, that's a different way to look at it, but I'll go with that. That sounds
Cannibal Corpse the Cannibal Corpse ordered like 50 of them, and they put them all on the cover of their most recent album. One more thing on Kerry King that I was just like, you are such a fucking douche. There's his self-appointed nickname. We'd be remiss not to mention this. His self-appointed nickname is KFK, an acronym which of course stands for Kerry fucking King. Self-appointed. Yeah, like.
I mean, that right there just puts him right in the finals.
That's the clincher for me.
Don't dig people with self-appointed nicknames, which is, let's face it, why our previous bracket ended up the way it did, or at least a part of the reason. That being Mr. Korn himself. And also to go with Kerry fucking King. Call me KFK. No, not going to. Just not going to.
Yeah, so I guess we're on agreement. He's going to the final.
Yeah, I would not disagree. Kerry King, our 1 seed, doing his work. He's moving on to the finals. So the other matchup in our regional semis, we have a 2-3 matchup: Jeff Tate, Sharon Osbourne. Guys, what do we think here?
I mean, we've already shat on Sharon Osbourne to the extent we really can, and there's still 5 minutes of that documentary.
That there is.
It is a valid point, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, we could just use 1 minute of that documentary. We still have 4 to save for later, and that already probably trumps everything we said. I'm
gonna introduce. Since we've talked about it so much, I'm gonna just play a quick audio clip for the viewers out there. I will keep it to only 30 seconds because it's torture. It's not the good kind of torture like that 20-minute Insane Clown Posse documentary. This is just ear cancer, folks. Take a listen.
But I've been told that my passion for living borders on extreme. I guess I'm an experience junkie. I crave adventure. In fact, if there's any excuse for adventure, I'm there. I usually bring a couple of motorcycles on tour with me. Ride between cities.
So, yeah, that I think, I don't know about you guys. I think that 30 seconds just took a couple years off my life.
I think at the end of the day, we've already said everything we can about Sharon. There's still so much more of that.
And so much more to say about Jeff Tate, but we will get into that in the next round. I don't think we have any opposition to this. Jeff Tate moves on to the finals.
I enjoy the fact that knowing there's more to that documentary is alone enough to propel him further, even without having listened to or watched any of it. Just knowing it exists is bad enough.
Yeah,
seems legit.
Yeah, that's just how it is.
I really want. I'll bring it up again. I really want whoever did that 20-minute Insane Clown Posse documentary to just follow Jeff Tate around and see what happens. Just have an adventure.
I kind of want to see Jeff Tate at the Gathering of the Juggalos now. Just combine the two. Just see
That's where he's headed. I mean, given how Queensrÿche just has fallen and keeps falling.
Yeah.
Although, which version of Queensrÿche will we see? Who knows? Anyway, our final matchup, as you can see from the graphic on screen here, we have a 1-2 Battle of the Bruisers here. Very few upsets in this round, in this region, I should say. Only the 4 or 5. At any rate, our final round matchup, 1-2 KERRY KING, Jeff Tate. Guys, who do you like here?
We haven't discussed KERRY KING's head yet, and I feel like that's worth discussing. Because I don't know if you've seen his head, but he has a head tattooed on the back of his head.
And it's a stupid head tattoo.
Yeah. It almost reminds me, the head he has almost reminds me, we'll get a little image of it. Yep, there we go. It almost reminds me of the sort of the In Flames, like the Jester logo, kind of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then he takes it one step further. He takes this head tattoo, this stupid head tattoo, and he turns it into an elaborate tribal tattoo, which spans both of his arms. I'm like, KERRY, you're from Southern California. You don't belong to a tribe. You're a bald, fat, white guy. Cut the tribal shit.
But alas, we say all this, and there's still 4 more minutes of that documentary, which we haven't watched.
This is when Jeff Tate moves on to the finals. Spoiler alert. That's just going to be our defense. There's still 3 more minutes of this documentary.
I feel like you use a minute to defeat each person. He has 6 lives. And it's
Jeff Tate versus
enough,
the world.
It's surprisingly
when they
enough.
make a movie out of it, Michael Cera will play Jeff Tate.
He probably could. I feel like Michael Cera's not much of a
and Edgar
douchebag,
Wright will
so.
direct, and it'll be glorious. Going beyond the EPK, GT EPK, the infamous. Tate is just he's like a super asshole. He's like an asshole squared. I mean, there was when Queensrÿche was playing the Rocklahoma Festival, which for those who don't know, Rocklahoma is a gathering for. It's not the gathering of the Juggalos, but it's a gathering where a lot of people who still think it's the '80s come to see bands that still think it's the '80s. I'm talking like Rat, Whitesnake, Poison. Queensrÿche is officially in that category, sadly. But yeah, they played Rocklahoma a couple of years ago. It's a big festival, and Jeff Tate got on stage and I guess wasn't hearing the response from the audience that he had hoped for, wasn't getting quite as filleted as he wanted to be, and told the audience they sucked and walked off.
Wow.
Yeah. If you're a musician, you have to work for that audience affection. If you're any type of performer, it's, recognition you work for. You don't throw a temper tantrum when the audience doesn't respond to your music.
I can't abide that at all. He also spat in his drummer's face one time.
He filmed 3 more minutes
of a documentary about himself. When one of their guitar players walked out, he hired his son-in-law into the band, which so we got the nepotism factor here. I mean, this is just there's no shortage of material on Jeff Tate. I mean, this is going to be a very, I think there's no more appropriate addition to the Matt Heafy, Jonathan Davis club than Jeff Tate at this point.
Yeah, I think KERRY KING doesn't stand a chance.
Yeah. Corey, any final thoughts?
Yeah, there's still 2 more minutes of that documentary that need to be watched.
Well, technically, no, if we really think about it, there's 5. We've only watched the first, so at the 5
you said
change.
3 last time, so I thought I'd take it down.
I know, but we're just using a minute to dispose
Fine.
of
For those of you, I'm going to flash the URL and a screen grab on here again. For those of you who haven't seen this EPK, this documentary to which we're referring, there it is. Go there. Go to YouTube. Just have a strong stomach. This is not for the weak-minded. This is not for the faint of heart. This is some top choice grade A dipshittery right here, folks. Jeff Tate, our number 2 seed, moves on. We have two seeds in the final 4.
And a 6.
And a 6. Makes it very interesting.
Yeah.
We of course will be back next week. We'll see who comes out of our final bracket, the Axl Rose region. Guys, any final thoughts?
Once Kerry King makes a documentary like that, maybe we'll
that
talk
could
about
bump
him.
it back up. We'll retroactively revisit the Kerry King bracket.
He'll just call it KDK, Kerry Documentary King.
I think I might actually waste 5 minutes of my life and watch a documentary just to see if each minute does breed a new dose of material for Mr. Tate.
Well, let us know
like
next time, because if it doesn't, we need to go back.
I know it's like this unexplored black hole that everybody's just afraid of, and it's time to put caution to the wind and watch whatever it is that he
Kerry
does.
King is creating an astral void in the universe with his dipshittery. Maybe in the future. For now, Jeff Tate owns all.
Yep, Jeff Tate owns all.
Yep. Well, for Corey Butterworth and Kevin Davis, I am Dan Kaplan. This has been the Kerry King bracket of the Kerry King region, I should say, of the bracket, episode 3. Check back next week. We'll be back for another episode, and hope you'll join us. Talk to you then.